You may have seen some bad economic news. Right now, there's war in Israel. Oil prices, they look to be heading back to $100. And interest rates, they look to be heading up even further. Last but not least, next year onwards, increase in GST, correct? All this bad economic news, and just to rub it in, household net worth has actually increased by 8.9% for Singaporeans. Rubbing in our face, correct? Most of us generally don't feel that we are much wealthier, not 8.9% more wealthy. So in today's discussion, I'll be sharing with you a few key points. The first is what exactly is net worth. The second is how many wealthy people are there in Singapore. And third, what does this overall Singapore net worth trend tell you about what's going to happen? And last but not least, I'll share with you some tips on how you can improve your own net worth over time. So if this topic interests you, continue watching on. Hi guys, welcome back. Without further ado, let's start with the first part. What exactly is net worth? This topic of net worth might touch a raw nerve among some of us because some of us feel that, the rich are getting richer, but we seem to not be progressing as much as them. Or that this net worth concept is just so complex. So let me just demystify what exactly it means. Net worth is actually quite simply your total assets minus your total liabilities. To simplify, your total assets includes a few things: your property, your CPF, your cash, and all other investments that you have, including insurance plans. What about your liabilities? Most of us have a mortgage, some of us have a car loan, and some unfortunately have credit card debt. So use your total assets minus your total liabilities. That is where you stand in terms of net wealth. And did it increase by 8.9%? Maybe let's touch our heart and make a rough guess on things. The concept of net worth is also important because when you die, this is what is left behind for your dependents. This is also the language that wealthy people use. Recently there's this article on how much CEO who has an exquisite GCV that looks like a spacecraft. I've actually seen the gate before. I'm familiar where it is. I didn't realize it's so big until it's the size of 23 5-room HDB flats. But that again is wealthy people, and leads us to the second discussion point for today is how many wealthy people in Singapore are there, and more importantly, why they are wealthier than most of us. If we were to discuss this subject of net worth, in that Singapore in aggregate has increased by 8.9% in net worth, then let's examine the high net worth space to understand what's really going on. Because, again, 80-20 rule, if they move 80%, that means the equation is impacted the most. According to Knight Frank Wealth Report 2022, they estimate that there are 526,000 millionaires in Singapore. Their definition is in US dollar, which means again, these 526,000 people are having a net worth of more than $1 million US. What about the ultra wealthy? They are defined to have more than $30 million US worth, and there are 4,200 in Singapore itself. But back to the point of $1 million US millionaires, that means also it's about 9% of our entire population, because right now our population stands at 5.9 million people. So it's not that rare to see millionaires these days, correct? But what if that estimate was inaccurate? That is why I went to find another report, which is this by Credit Suisse, Global Wealth Data Book 2022. By their estimates, people having a net worth of $1 million US, there are 332,000 of them. This goes to show, if in Sing dollar terms you have more than 1.35 million, for example, you are the top 10, if not the top 5% of all of us. But wealth is wealth. As what Charlie Munger said, the world is driven by envy. Don't look at it and just feel envious and not do anything about it. That's why towards the end, I'll be showing you what steps you can take. So stay tuned for it. The question that we must next ask ourselves is, why are these wealthy people or ultra high net worth getting richer and richer? The simple answer, they own more assets than you and I. And the second part of it is they have actually easy access to loans, and that typically their loans are cheaper than ours. How can that be, correct? It's actually not a secret, because when you do mortgage loan, for example, you would realize that there are tiers to the loan charge. If you're borrowing 500,000, it's 3.5%, for example. If you're borrowing 1.5 million, it can be squeezed down to 3.1%. So again, the loan size impacts the interest rate that you are offered. The ultra high net worth, you bet they are getting much more favorable rates. With that cleared, let's move on to the next topic, which is what is driving the overall Singapore net worth to increase by 8.9%. As we have discussed so far, assets minus liability is net worth. So let's pull up the asset chart to appreciate what has gone on. If we see this asset chart, you realize that asset values have continued rising for the last 10-15 years, correct? In fact, right now, it looks like a 2 or 3x that of 10 years ago. The only dip seems to be around COVID period, where the stock market crashed. But other than that, this chart has been going up to the moon. My best guess to explain this chart is actually because our property trends have been moving up for the last 10 years. If we see the private residential index, we would realize that there's probably a strong contributing factor from property prices to overall net worth. In Singapore, home ownership has always been around 90%, which means when property prices go up, more or less everybody benefits. It's just to a different magnitude. What about liabilities, which is the second part of the equation? We would see from this graph, which aggregates all liabilities, the trend has been slowing down or in fact turning negative, correct, as of second quarter 2023. Why is this so? Why aren't people borrowing more money? Is it because interest cost is getting expensive? I would like to think so. And that's what leads to the next topic for today, which is what you must know to improve your own net worth over time. This chart surfaced in my research. What we can see is that yes, there are some people over $1 million in net worth, but the majority of people have a net worth of between $100,000 to $1 million. There's more than 2 million of us in that net worth range. The second next highest is actually 10,000 to 100,000. That is about 1.8 million of us in this range. The worrying part is there are some with net worth less than 10,000. Hopefully they are mainly students. If not, these people might be in financial distress or will not likely reach financial freedom. So the whole idea of bringing this chart up is to show you how we can progress to the next stage of net worth just by taking a few right steps. And let's start with the first tip, which is don't just be a saver, be an investor. With that, I'd like to introduce you to JOSH TAN Finance Summit. Over here, 29 October, I'll be sharing with you face-to-face investment tips, CPF strategies, market outlook for 2024. I have a surprising Black Swan event to share with you that could happen. And last but not least, I'll also be doing a lot of Q&A to help you in your financial journey one-to-one. So if you're keen to join me for this summit, look for links below and purchase your tickets today. Back to the point about saving and investing. While it is true that right now, T-bills are paying 4+%, which is even better or higher than the core inflation rate at 3.4%, as you can see over here, this is not likely going to last. You're not likely going to make free money just by putting monies into treasury bills, which beats inflation. This is an anomaly and won't likely repeat itself over the long term. What you need to build wealth is to approach the game like the wealthy. Own assets. What we can see over here is that in terms of total assets, there is half of it in financial assets, half in property. Maybe Singaporeans are too invested in the properties, but that's a discussion for a separate time. But let's focus on financial assets. You would see the biggest contributor of financial assets is actually currency and deposits. And just now I said, treasury bills paying you above inflation, that is just an anomaly, and in future, it will not likely be the case. That means many of us are still relying on bank interest to grow our wealth, and it's no secret that inflation will gradually eat this down in the long term. A lot of times on this channel, I've shared before, the first 100,000 is a pure savings game, but the first $1 million, that becomes an investment game. What you would realize is many Singaporeans are underinvested. Listed shares, that's only $118 million, a far cry from the total currency and deposits. There's even more life insurance than listed securities to my surprise. Again, what I would like to advocate is invest. And don't wait for a bull market to start investing, because monies are made when you invest during a bear market. Keep that in mind, and let's move on to the second tip, which is to scale back on your loans right now. Cut back on debt. If you're buying a new house, moderate your expectations. Right now, fixed rates are between 3 to 3.5%. Floating rates, they are closer to 5% right now already. Very painful. The difference between us and the super wealthy is that they know how to manage debt a lot better than us, and that of course adds on to their benefit of getting favorable rates. If you are buying a house right now, avoid big mortgage loans because interest costs will shackle your steps towards financial freedom. Also shown up in this summary table is loans to financial institutions. My interpretation of this are financial margin accounts, whether you have taken it to buy policies or investments or stocks. Margin account right now costs a lot more than in 2021. Look to reduce them. If the advice you've been getting is to continue leverage up, think very carefully because right now we're facing a long-term higher interest rate environment and this interest cost is eating into your overall wealth performance. Last but not least, when we look to the bottom, we would see credit charge cards. If I were to interpret this correctly, it means credit card debt. And this is the one that has been growing quarter on quarter, correct? Mortgage loans look to have plateaued. Margin loans look to have plateaued. But this is still growing aggressively. And I don't know whether it's because some Singaporeans are facing higher stress due to interest cost environment. It's also reported on OCBC Wellness Survey that there are groups of Singaporeans struggling with debt. So again, the two tips. Firstly, start being an investor and move away from saving only. The second tip, scale back down on your loans ASAP. Or if you're buying a home, moderate your expectations. So in conclusion today, what can we learn? While Singapore's net worth has in general increased by 8.9%, a lot is possibly attributed to property price appreciation. If that slows, maybe our overall net worth starts to slow. And as what Warren Buffett has shared before, when the tide recedes, that's where we see who is swimming naked. And don't be one who has only built up net worth because of appreciating assets. Today's interest environment will expose those who are over-leveraged, and you need to play the game correctly moving forward. As always, if you'd like to know more about finance, look for JOSH TAN Finance Summit, links are below. And thank you for watching right to the very end. I'll be sharing a new update to my net worth very soon, so smash or subscribe as always, and check out this previous video I've done a year plus back that showed my net worth back when I was age of 37. If you have seen it already, check out this other video which touches on two ladies who in my opinion may be spending a little bit too much. Hopefully they are saving better right now and getting on track to improve their own net worth. With that, that's all for today's tutorial. See you in a future episode. Take care and goodbye.